If your body is stuck in a state where it doesn't feel safe, whether you are living in a reason for that, or you've experienced stress from trauma or work that is triggering that, or the combination, or even if you have a problem in your body, a colonization of mold that's from the past, or a Lyme disease from that's going on, any of those things can dysregulate you.
Are you going through life blind? This is Eyes Wide Open with Nick Thompson. On this podcast, we share knowledge and stories that build human connection while elevating stigmatized societal issues such as mental health, holistic wellness, culture, free speech, and more. All to ensure we show up in the world with our eyes wide open. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Eyes Wide Open. I'm very excited to chat with our guest today, which is Dr. Jaban Moore. Dr. Jaban is a doctor of chiropractic and a functional medicine practitioner who is specializing in root cause medicine that helps people identify and address the underlying causes of their symptoms. He's also the founder of Redefining Wellness Center, which is a clinic that focuses on that same mission. Welcome to my show. Thanks for coming on today. I'm super excited about this conversation. How are you?
Hey, man, I'm having a fun day. And I mean, as we were going into this, you're like, how do you want me to introduce you? And I'm like, I don't really care. I just want to help people. And I love what I do. And I experiment on myself. So I'm just excited to be able to give information on whatever people are interested that are following you to try and add value to their life. Because someone asked me one time, what is my big, hairy, audacious goal? I was just like, I don't know. I'm just here to help people. And I sat back and this is what I came up with. My goal is to give people as much information as I can so that they can make truly informed consent about their health decisions, right? Like we all sign these documents when we go to doctors, but you usually don't even know what you're really signing and you have no frame of reference to make a decision. So my goal is to give people as much informed consent as I can about their health decisions so that they can take control of their lives, because absolutely no one knows them like them, and nobody knows what they want out of life more than them.
That's so well put. And actually that's kind of my philosophy. And that's been a little bit what's taken me on this. I try to live like a very healthy, holistic life. Obviously I have my faults, but when I really started paying attention was I cut gluten out of my diet in like 2012, and I didn't realize how much better I felt until I tried to bring it back into my diet. Mm-hmm. And then at that point I was like, wow, I'm like, if you like listen to your body, it kind of tells you a lot of what's going on. Or if you pay attention to symptoms, which I know we'll get into, what's causing them instead of putting, a medicine on top of it, you can actually get to specific things that your body is telling you. You just got to pay attention.
Yeah, you said I do root cause medicine, which is what I do, and that's what my website says and all that. But I just messaged my team the other day. I'm like, what if I just call it logical medicine? and they're like, what do you even mean? And I go, for most people, getting from where they are to where they want to be is just taking logical steps. If I eat gluten, I feel worse. Don't do it. If I don't sleep, I feel worse. So sleep better. If I take electrolytes in the morning and it increases my energy, I'm going to keep doing that. If I drink coffee and I crash later, maybe I shouldn't do that, right? Like take these logical steps. I know the things that I just said are super basic, but let's go into like really significant things. If we have an autoimmune condition and your body's being attacked by your own body, is it logical to think that your body is stupid or that there's something that it's attacking or something that's generating an attack? It's the second, and we have so much research to prove it. That's the logical thing you can do. But medicine says, no, take an anti-immune system drug, right? Like one that kills your immune system, that is super toxic to your body, that triggers more problems, and that's what we're going to do. I'm like, that is illogical. So can I just call it logical medicine? And that's what we do.
I love that. I think that's a really good approach. I actually had Dr. Evelyn Higgins on my show last year at the end. And one of the things she said that sticks out to me is she's like, nobody's body is deficient in a pharmaceutical.
No.
Nobody's body is deficient in a pharmaceutical. You're deficient in a lot of other things, but it's not a pharmaceutical. So like, why start there? And that sticks with me. And I like calling it logical medicine because somewhere along the lines, modern medicine or what do they call it? traditional medicine, whatever, like it's all pharmaceuticals, and it isn't always addressing those causes within our bodies that are forcing us to behave in a certain way, physically or mentally.
Yeah. And let me take what she said another step farther, because I'm going to trigger some people. So trigger warning.
We do those all the time on this show.
Yeah. It's trigger warning, right? Like your body's not deficient of pharmaceutical. Your body also isn't deficient, nor does it need many of the herbs you take, homeopathics you take, and nutrients you take. So all the good stuff, it may not be deficient of that either. And if it is, why? Right? Like, let's talk about iron. Your body does need iron in it. You should be able to get most of it from your diet. If you are deficient in iron, it's not because you take a lack of iron pills. It could be that your diet's not good, and we may need to fix that. But if you keep taking iron pills and you're still deficient, there's a problem. It's, again, logical that there's a problem. You have parasites. You have a bacteria that eats the iron. You have a dysbiosis where you're bleeding, where that could lead to colitis or Crohn's or something of that nature. There's a problem. So stop just popping pills, or you're not going to ever feel the way you truly want to feel long term. And here's another one. If you take 40 pills, logically, you have really expensive poop. Because there's no way your body is absorbing all of that stuff, which is why we see, if you really go look at like the studies, you see a bunch of pills and capsules and poo, right? So logically, let's not take 40 things. Let's take 5 or 6 or 7, and that's the most. And let's make sure that they're the things your body needs and wants, and that's going to shift you. And then we tweak it and shift that until we reach a point where it's like, okay, I'm good. I probably can absorb a few more things. And if you want to be an ultra marathoner that crushes the world, maybe you do need to take a little more, but your body's also so high level and optimized that, yeah, you can break a few of those basic rules that we probably have when we're not as well.
Yeah, and I know I joked about this ahead of time, but I take a ton of supplements, and I joked ahead of time for those listening that I was just going to bring my supplements and we're going to go buy them one by one on which ones I should be taking or not taking, but we'll save that for part 2. So before I want to get into that, but I think what's so interesting about you, and I've heard you tell it a few different times in a few different formats, but your story of how you landed into this holistic, functional, however you want to describe it, practical solutions for root cause. How did you get here? You were a young kid. What did you want to be, and how did you end up here?
Yeah, so I told my parents when I was 5 I was going to do 2 things. Like every kid does, they have a dream. Mine wasn't firefighter or cop or movie star. It was, I want to be a doctor and I want to play in the NFL. That's what I wanted to do. Well, I'm 5'10". The NFL is not for me. Sorry for my childhood self. I made some bad choices when I was young. I was squatting 700 pounds when I was like 17, 16. So,
oh my God. Did you play football in high school? My growth is not there. Do what? Did you play football at all in high school?
I did football, track, wrestling, soccer, baseball, and swimming.
Oh, wow. Okay. So just a few.
My cousin's 6'5", my other one's like 6'2". So like I probably stunted my growth. So parents out there, don't let your kids squat so much when they're in high school. Then the journey for me, my mom, when I was 10 years old, looked at me and she's like, I don't know if I'm going to be around soon. I'm really, really sick. She would sleep during the day and was up at night and was on 40 medications. And I keep long stories short. And she basically told me one day, she's like, I don't know if I'm going to be around. Your father's dyslexic. You're going to have to step up. And I did. Like I was a absolute troublemaker. So for all of you parents out there listening, kids can turn around. I spent my entire 1st through 5th grade in the principal's office. We're on a first name basis. Half my time was there. My mom told me this, and please don't use this to turn your kid around. I stopped getting in trouble. I gave up my childhood. I became never again got in trouble. Like a switch went off in me. And until I was 30, the only thing that drove me was to provide and protect and serve my family. And that became not just my family, but the people around me in the world. I wanted to give back and make sure that other kids didn't end up like that, didn't have to go through that. So I ended up going through school and became a doc. And then when I was in school, I was actually going through my professional schooling. I got Lyme disease, which just reinvigorated my needs because my mom was misdiagnosed with everything. It ended up actually being diabetes, which we think nowadays, like, how did you miss that? But they did a lot.
That's crazy.
And then I got Lyme, and it wasn't that they misdiagnosed, it's that no one had an answer. They're just like, well, you have erectile dysfunction. Take L-arginine from the natural side of things from people, and from pharmaceuticals, take Viagra. And nobody was giving me answers of why is this
25,
happening?
they're saying
25.
take Viagra at 25.
Yeah, that's just take a little bit to solve the problem. I'm like, well, sure, but why is there a problem?
Yeah.
So
That's
although,
crazy.
yes, it's a Band-Aid, and if you're trying to go out and do things, like, that'll work, but why? And that's always been my curiosity, is have a curiosity like a child. Why? So I was at a conference and somebody said, hey, could it be Lyme? And I'm like, I don't know. Tell me more. And he's like, I don't know either. I just heard about this thing. And I'm like, oh.
Is there not a way to test for Lyme?
In 2013, not really.
Okay.
Like, it was all garbage. Now I would say there's a few okay tests. I don't want to say good, but okay. The one I preferentially use the most is Vibrant America's Tick-Borne 2.0 panel. People would argue that Hygienics is better. I'm like, they're both good. I have found Vibrant to be better for me.
Okay. So you're 25 years old and you're like, oh, maybe I've got this Lyme disease, and you've got ED. I mean, I can't believe at 25 they were giving you Viagra. That sounds just crazy to me. But then how did you sort of address did you get a formal diagnosis, or like, how did you kind of hone in on, this is what I'm going to do and how am I going to address this?
Yeah, man. So fortunately, I was in professional school. I was going to functional medicine conferences. So I'm in there with every medical profession and people that are curious. So I'm asking around now. I'm like, anybody heard of Lyme disease? Could this be a thing? Anybody know anybody that does that? And honestly, the answer was like, not really. It wasn't what it is now, where people can go to Instagram and be like, Lyme disease, who does this? So I finally found a guy in Wisconsin. I drove up there, and that was his specialty. That's what he did. And I walk in, he does some rudimentary testing, and he's like, look, the lab tests suck. We can do some things. And then he put me through a protocol, and immediately, and I'm one of the fortunate ones, immediately. Yeah. So like within 3 to 6 months, I started seeing changes.
Wow.
And
how many years at this point had you been suffering with the symptoms?
If I really look back, I'm thinking somewhere between 18 and 19 is when stuff started.
Wow.
Up until 17, I was back squat 700 pounds. I had no knee pain. My vertical was 36 inches. I ran a 4.640. I ran a 10.900 meter dash. Like, I was after it.
You were close to the NFL with those numbers. You get that 40 speed up.
Yeah. And then it was just like, I just stopped. Like, I just stopped improving. I started getting knee pain. I started getting sore throats. I started developing food allergies. So I ended up looking back on things after the fact. Now I know what I know. I lived in this basement because I was poor and I was cheap, and it was covered in mold. Ugh. I mean, I actually would squeegee the water back to the drain after it would flood because it was cheap. So I just had everything lifted up. I didn't put any things on the ground besides like the metal legs or wooden whatever. And I'm like, oh, it's just a little mold. It's natural, right? It's normal. It's everywhere, right? Well, no, it's not now. But then that was the mindset, like so many people I work with. So yeah, I mean, just freshman to sophomore year of college is when things really started happening to me. And here we are, 25 in professional school, and I go up and I get some tests and some treatment. And I tell you what, man, within months, I'm a new person. By the time I got out of school, so 25, I was like 28 when I finally got my feet on the ground in practice, right? It takes some time to graduate, get through your boards, get to practice, be able to breathe and not just simply work.
Yeah.
I started CrossFitting. And by like 30, I was top 1% of CrossFitters as far as like the games was concerned when you do your CrossFit open thing. So I had a couple guys in my gym that were trying to go to the games. I wasn't. I would just compete against them.
You were just training, yeah.
And I was on par with those guys, and they were in the top 1%. So I was like, this is just fun for me. And that's kind of where I sat. And I got back to feeling good and being athletic again, but I missed like a decade of my life of being athletic because my body just didn't work right.
Well, and in your prime, like athletic time is your 20s.
Yeah.
So then when you were starting to feel better, so you obviously moved, you weren't living in the moldy
Mhm.
basement anymore. When did you start to piece those things together that, hey, this might be where things went downhill for me, and understand kind of what you had to change?
I'll tell you what, man, it like I was 90% better before I ever thought of any of this. Because
Wow.
here's the deal. Like I went to him, he was a Lyme doc. He worked on Lyme. Sure. He said, you got to get your vitamins in and detox. And it was Lyme. That was it. And I got better mostly to what I thought was better. And then I went into practice and he started sending me all these Lyme people. Like, here you go. Here's one. Here's one. Here's one. If you don't know about Lyme as you're listening, in 2014, 15, that was like the worst person you could get in because they were so difficult. There wasn't a lot of tools. There wasn't much knowledge. We didn't know about the other coexisting problems very much, as far as the widespread knowledge. So I was getting all of these very difficult situations sent to me, and I had time to research and learn. And sitting on a podcast with a mold expert 2 to 3 years ago, we were talking through my journey. And he's like, have you ever lived in mold or had mold affect you? And I was like, no, not really. I work with it now. And I was like, oh, wait, what? Oh, man. Like it just hit me. I was like, that's what took me down. That made my immune system weak enough for Lyme and parasites to come in. And it was originally the mold. So it was, and I didn't know about metals and I didn't know about parasites. And it was always just going to conferences, I'm learning, trying to help that next client get to the next stage because they're stuck. And that's where I went. I mean, honestly, like even after Lyme to parasites to metals to molds came like fight or flight nervous system regulation. Like that's kind of what is cool and in the conversation so much online now. It's one of the hottest researched or Googled words is nervous system regulation or somatic work. And what even is that? Well, for me, I always break everything down to way too simple. But for me, it's if your body is stuck in a state where it doesn't feel safe, whether you are living in a reason for that, or you've experienced stress from trauma or work that is triggering that, or the combination, or even if you have a problem in your body, a colonization of mold that's from the past, or a Lyme disease that's going on, any of those things can dysregulate you on a nervous system level that makes you feel internally, subconsciously, or consciously unsafe. And that's another piece of the puzzle. And fortunately, I really never personally got to that point, but I work with so many people that is a hiccup that if it's not dealt with, just like if mold's not dealt with, or Lyme or parasites, they're not getting well. And I had so many people that reached 90%, and I went searching. And the latest link, or maybe not latest, but the most popular link recently was, oh, let's bring in some neurofeedback and somatic work and some limbic work. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, that next 10% is better.
Wow. So what I find so interesting is, first of all, it feels like everything is killing us or making us sick, right? You named, I think a lot of people have no idea what the symptoms of Lyme are, parasites, mold poisoning or toxicity that could be causing autoimmune disorders, all of the water, which we'll get into, all of this stuff. If I'm someone who's not feeling right and I don't even know where to start, right? Like, I feel like I don't know. I'm like looking around my place. I'm like, do I got mold in here? Like, we had some roof work done last year. Like, should I be checking for that kind of stuff if you're not feeling right? How do people like even take a step forward if they know something's wrong but haven't been able to get a diagnosis?
Yeah. Well, obviously that I could talk on for like 4 straight hours to some degree because there's so many possibilities. But the goal is what? Balance your body so it feels well, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what if I told you that's not right? I'll do a pitch for you right now. This came to my mind. What if it's balance the biome, not the body? Well, what's a biome? It's a confusing word. People are going to start thinking microbiome. They're going to start thinking all these other things. But a biome, technically defined, is the person, right? So your body, your cells, your human cells, the organisms that you interact with inside your own body that make up your body. So all of the gut flora that we take probiotics to support, and then the environment, the external stressors. So if you just try to balance your body, like so many doctors, they're in their detox and they're killing, they're focused on changing your physiology, which is all pharmaceuticals, right? That's pretty much they're changing your physiological response. You're giving somebody a ton of these supplements, all those things that you talked to me about. You're like, I'm going to give my CoQ10 and my electrolytes, my A, B, C, D, E vitamins. Right? That's body. And then the detoxers and killers are trying to remove the stuff in you that shouldn't be there. But what about the microbiome and the interaction of all of those pieces, not just doing one piece of it? Right? So for me, it's where do you start is you balance the biome and you look at which one of those pieces of the puzzle, body, organisms, and environment, and you go, which one of these can I start correcting for? So many people listening right now, because if they're interested enough to sit on this and go, man, you've been talking for 30 minutes and we're not even getting advice yet. You're still interested. Then,
well, I think a lot of people don't know. I mean, I know your bubble on social media and they know, but I don't think a lot of people know this basic stuff. Like where you were saying, 10 years ago, living in mold, I wasn't thinking anything of it or whatever, 2013. I bet there's a lot of people that don't think anything of it. Because it isn't common knowledge, and the medical field and healthcare isn't promoting preemptive anything.
Absolutely.
It's all reactive. So I think that educating people, which is one of the reasons I have this podcast, is to like learn myself, but also like take these kind of complex ideas or things that may be ambiguous to people who don't live it every day. They don't know, and people don't know what they don't know. You know, I'm still amazed how many times I'll share with people. We talked, beforehand a little bit. I'll share with people like, hey, I have this really expensive water filter because do you know all the that's in our water? Like, and people don't know. And it's just because it isn't common narratives out there.
Absolutely. I set my entire note up so that I don't forget things because there are so many possibilities out there. Many people, as they listen to this, are going to feel some overwhelmed, but let's simplify it. Like, let's start with, do you live in a place that is safe? And the checks that I'm going to tell people to do is your air safe? Have we appropriately tested for mold? And that's a podcast in itself. But that little air sample machine that you put in the middle of your floor when you're buying a new house, not good enough. We need to get dust samples. We need to understand what a building biologist is to make sure we're safe, and we can go down that rabbit hole. Then have you checked for radon? And then is there anything else air-wise that would be really unusual? Like, do you live downstream from like a pig farm or a chicken farm? Or, is there a massive fire in California going on where you're breathing bad air? Like, is your air safe? What about your water? So we'll go down that rabbit hole too, but just for everybody listening, he kind of hinted at it. Water is something that's basic and needed for every cell of your body. Some people say it's 60, 70% of your body. We need the water that we're bringing in to be clean. Tap water absolutely is not clean. 170 million Americans are drinking radioactive water. That does not include heavy metals and plastics and medications and every other possible thing that can be in that. And your refrigerator filter doesn't do squat for it. Your handheld little thing that you put in the fridge and pull out of the fridge type of filter, not good enough. Most of your carbon and ionic filters, I don't think are good enough. They're all better than tap, but none of them are enough for me. So like, are you drinking clean water? And we go through that.
When you say radioactive, what do you, I hate that we have to talk about radioactive tap water in the United States of America. But what do you mean by radioactive tap water?
Yeah. So I'll just requote that 170 million Americans drinking radioactive water. I actually saw that on a Yahoo article. I was like, wait a minute, what? So then I go to the EPA database sourced by EWG, which is Environmental Workers Group, and you look up a water supply. So look up Houston or California's water supply, like all over the place, LA. Go to Miami and just go, what is in the tap water? You're going to see uranium in a lot of them. Phoenix, Arizona. You're going to see radium and some others, thallium and cesium. Like, those are really common ones. And they're in major municipal water supplies that people are drinking. And they're like, well, it's at a low level. Okay, well, low level radiation through a gallon a day for 30 years does what? Well, I can test
No
your
one
hair.
knows. They haven't done any studies on that.
They haven't ish, but I can test your hair and I can find out that it accumulates in your body because your body can't remove it well. So then on a hair test where there's a reference range where you can be like at a low amount of it, but you're way off the page, I'm going, that's probably not going to be okay for you. So we got to do something about it. And I can tell you, I have people that live in homes with radon, which has been greatly studied. There's good testing for basements, and radon, radium, uranium, they all kind of test similar with some of the hair testing. And I can see radon elevate somebody's levels much less than uranium and radium in tap water. And then when I go test their radon in their basement, because we have so many studies for it, if you have a 3 in your basement with radon, it's the equivalent of smoking like a pack of cigarettes a day.
Oh my God.
I'll get people a 10. So is that 10 pack or like 3-4 packs a day? So if a 10 moves you to, on my scale, like halfway up that radiation scale on the hair test, that's a 10 radium, which is like packs of cigarettes a day. But drinking it puts you off the top of the chart. What is that doing to you?
Oh my God. This is depressing. It's like, so I jokingly said, like, everything's making us sick. Everything seems to be hurting our immune systems, making us vulnerable to obviously things like Lyme disease and other autoimmune stuff going on in our bodies. But then you get sick. I'm actually just getting over influenza A. So I got sick last week. And by the way, I don't get sick very often. I'm pretty avoidant of any kind of flu. I think this is the first time I've ever had the flu. But I think to myself, I'm like, wow, I'm like actually immune system's weak right now. I should probably be careful with some of the stuff that I'm doing and not doing and stuff like that. But like, then you think about this, it's like the water we drink in the United States has all sorts of chemicals. It's radioactive, I guess now. And, the pharmaceuticals and everything. And they're like, what do we do? It's water. I know here in Chicago, we have lead in the water too. That was reported maybe 2 years ago. So like, what can we do as individuals? Cause I don't think we're going to necessarily replace every water pipe and put a new filtration system in every city in the country, at least in the way we are right now. Like, what can we do?
Yeah. I mean, you go down that list of what I was talking about, right? So you go down and you start off with air, and then you can go to water. The way that I do it is if you have radioactive water, there's one option. You need a distiller. That's a type of filtration. That is not a name of a product. It's a type of filtration. If you don't have radioactive water, then reverse osmosis. And that's a different type. And that's what you got to do. You've got to choose the right one for you. And then you have to make a decision to put that in your home, and that's going to clean your water. And then you have to make a list of the other things that affect you in your environment. Hygiene products, your food that's coming in. Do you have, and it's not necessarily environment, external, but internal. Do you have toxic things in your body, such as dental issues, such as mercury amalgams? Do we have root canals or some sort of implant in your body? Right?
I heard you talk about root canals on another show, and I was like, oh God, the dental community.
Hey, they're learning slowly. They're learning though. There are shifts, major shifts away from mercury amalgams and new docs, but we got to get all the old guys to retire first before that's really going to make a true long-term shift. And as we're talking, I'm going to be that guy. I looked up Chicago water. I'm going to be the guy. Here we go. Chicago water, so we can make this personal, has 13 times the safe level based off of EWG's studies, radium. So therefore, no one should drink water from the tap in Chicago without distilling it, based on my opinion.
Well, what's your recommended distiller? I think we'll throw a link to that down in the chat, because I've been using a Berkey filter for 12, 13 years at this point. And I've just recently, I know they got in some trouble, but it's like very confusing to go through that. But that's a filtration system. It's not distilling. It's not reverse osmosis. So I'm still drinking bad Chicago water, even though I think I'm invested in good, clean filtration. Is that fair?
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. I don't want perfection from people. I don't need perfection from people. What I need is better than you were yesterday. And we're going to see progress. You don't have to be 100%. I'm sure as heck not. I love a cheeseburger every once in a while. I go out with friends and go to Chiefs games, and man, I was drinking some stuff that I definitely wouldn't tell clients to drink. I needed some hot chocolate. It was like 0 degrees and my hands were freezing. My body was freezing. And I'm like, hot chocolate sounds great. It's not good for me. My blood sugar is going to spike. But in the moment, it felt great. And I was like, okay, so it's not about perfection. It's about figuring out what is going to allow your body to be able to operate well and have ability to adapt to the stresses that you come in contact with, whether that be all the sugar that was in that hot chocolate that tasted so good but was not good for me, or your job or your life or influenza A. Your body should be able to adapt and beat it. And we just need to make sure that your bucket isn't overflowing with too much stress, which is all the things I've been talking about. And one of the easy ways to do that is what I've talked about so far, which is just simply doing the environmental stuff. I live in a clean home. I drink clean water. I use clean hygiene products. I eat clean food. And that clean food is nourishing to my body and not over the top and say carbs or sugar or something of that nature, so that you can just stay well.
Yeah. Can we dive into the clean hygiene products a little bit? Because as this audience knows, I make my own soaps most of the time. I have made my own toothpaste forever. I try to stay clean myself. Like, that's well documented. But one of the areas that I know can be a trigger or a hot topic is deodorant and antiperspirants. And I hear from a lot, and I talk about toothpaste a lot, and I talk about stuff that can be absorbed, right? Because, in your mouth, things get absorbed first there. So I talk a lot to people about these things that we're putting on or in our bodies that get absorbed and then, do damage in a different way than you might not be thinking. And so one of them is deodorant. And I haven't used an antiperspirant deodorant in 10 years. I mean, I started my whole journey like 10, 12 years ago. So everything's about that long. But, what are some of the things in these hygiene products that people should be looking out for, and what can they do to your body if you're not careful?
Man. I mean, this was a fun conversation I was having the other day with a client, brand new to like the whole functional medicine world, which I'll be frank, I don't get that very often anymore, because people get to my Instagram, and by the time that we're talking, they're no longer like new. So I don't get the excitement of like the face when people like, oh, wait a minute, what?
That's the magic of coming here is a lot of people are probably hearing some of this stuff from me, but like not at the level of expertise or way that you're able to speak about it. So I think that's what makes this show great.
Yeah. So hygiene products. Well, specifically deodorant. Let's just talk about the fact that antiperspirant is mostly aluminum. As far as like that really bad ingredient we all want to remove. And so many people advertise aluminum free now.
Yep.
So what are you doing? You're using aluminum to clog up your pores, to clog up your sweat glands so that you don't sweat, because you don't want to like have pit out. Cool. I get it. I don't want to pit out either. But what does aluminum do to your body? One, well, look up the connection between aluminum and Alzheimer's.
It's all in the brain.
Who wants to lose their memory? Not I. And then beyond that, you're clogging pores, which doesn't allow sweat out. Well, what is sweat? Well, sweat is cooling your body. So, okay, if I don't need to be cooler, I'll sacrifice that. But also what is sweat? Sweat is detox. It's removing other toxins. So it's removing waste from your body. So now we're adding toxin and then not detoxing. We're not removing toxin. So we're doubling down on the bad. And we don't want to be doing that. And that's just aluminum alone. Again, correlated straight back to neurological disease, specific Alzheimer's, but also some other things. ChatGPT it. I just did. I literally pulled it up because I'm just like, why not? And I think it's fun because people trust AI these days, right? So they trust what it is. So we don't want to have aluminum in our body. Now, on the other side of it, what other things can be in there? Well, phthalate, which is a plastic that can massively decrease your testosterone. plastics and different things like that can decrease testosterone. It can be endocrine disrupting, so it can decrease the effectiveness of hormones inside your body. So imagine if you had a savings account with $1 million in it, and you had a bill that was $1,000, but your checking account had 100, right? You can't pay the
Yeah.
bill. But what if you lost access to your savings account? It's useless. That's what an endocrine disruptor does to your body. That's what BPA plastics does. That's what so many of these other things do in your body. They block access to receptors so that the hormones you actually have cannot go and tell your body to do something. So because of this, you can't create what you need to be creating, whether that's metabolism or digestion or enzyme production or whatever it is you're looking for. And the problem is phthalate increases absorption of everything. So if I am a hygiene company, I want to put phthalate in there because it's going to increase the absorption of the vitamin E and all these other things that they put in there. And by no means am I a hygiene expert. And I can't tell you exactly which products they use phthalate to increase absorption of to the best ability, because that's just not my focus.
Yeah.
But it increases absorption. And when it increases absorption, one, it's of the good stuff, but it's also the phthalate, which then is a forever chemical and then damages your body. And they've connected phthalates to in children, if the mother of the child has a high level of phthalate in comparison to the mother of a child that does not have a high level of phthalate, it decreases IQ by about 7%.
In the child?
Like 7 points, because the average person's about 100. So if you decrease by 7% intelligence, that's a big deal. That's a difference between like getting A's and B's and C's.
Yeah. That's crazy.
That's the development of a child. It can decrease the size of the male development. So the penis size, we don't want to do that to our sons. Like there's so many reasons that we don't want to get this stuff in our body, and it's in there. And then you can talk about shampoos and parabens being endocrine disrupting. So what I end up doing is I go to EWG, which is Environmental Workers Group. You literally can type in your product and it will tell you what it ranks. I am not as committed as you are. I wish I could say I was, as far as like making my own toothpaste and making my own stuff. That'd be awesome. That's just not my passion point. Like I want to go to Chiefs game, or I want to build more content out and grow that. So what I do is I just go to EWG and I go buy stuff. Like I buy Revitin toothpaste from Jerry Caratola, who is an expert dentist, and I let him do that work for me. And then I'll go and buy Everyman Jack, which most of their products fit my parameters. So like 1 to 3 on EWG to where I will use them. There's a couple that don't, so you still got to be careful.
I use their deodorant sometimes. I've just recently started this one called Magsol, which is like a mineral, magnesium based natural coconut oil. I forget what else in it, but very natural. But I like Everyman Jack. It meets my threshold too.
Yeah, so it's just
but they have both, to be clear to people. Some of the scents that they have are antiperspirants, which is when you know that it has aluminum in it.
Yeah, they do have both. So that's what you got to just type in your specific product, which you can actually download their app and then just scan the barcode, which makes it even easier. So it just comes down to what do you need to do? And here's the fun part. When you've detoxed, when you're healthy, and when you haven't been using all the junk, your body actually acclimates. And there's like a movement out there. It's very under the radar because nobody wants to admit it. But if you don't use all these harsh chemicals on your skin to clean yourself, if you don't use the antiperspirants, if you do detox, can you imagine that your body gets cleaner? And when your body gets cleaner, you don't stink as much.
I know. I've noticed that.
So you don't need
Even
all the
when I
scents.
sweat, I don't stink.
Yeah. I mean, a little bit after a while, but not like you used to.
Oh, yeah.
And for me, like, I'm hanging out with some friends and some of the girls are like, you suck. I know you didn't put deodorant on because we talked about it. You don't smell. You're sweating. So yes, I do sweat, but you don't smell. And I stink. I smell myself and you don't. And you're a dude. And why is this happening?
That's hilarious. But it's what you put in your body. It's what you put on your body. It's all of those things. That's so funny. So what did you say the toothpaste brand was you use? I'll look
It
it
was
up.
Revitin from Jerry Caratola. He's
Revitin.
one of those
Okay.
expert biological dentists.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. So I think what kind of gets overwhelming about these kinds of information and these kinds of conversations, though, at least for me, and I kind of am not surprised by anything anymore, but it's just so much. Like you look around your life and you feel like the air you're breathing isn't healthy, the water you're drinking isn't healthy, the stuff you're eating isn't healthy, the stuff you're cleaning yourself with isn't healthy. You know, I just saw on Instagram the other day that like we are each in our bodies producing, I guess we're not producing it, inhaling, I guess, like a credit card worth of microplastics. All of this stuff is just hurting us, and it's like slowing down our immune systems and making us vulnerable and disrupting our hormonal production and creating all these imbalances and all of this stuff like this. So I just want to say one of the things, and I said this ahead of time. Now, I've been following you for a while. What I like about your content is it's digestible. It is easy to understand for someone who maybe hasn't heard of Lyme disease for the first time, or some of the water stuff that you share. And I want to say thank you for that. And I want to say, when you get, or ask you, when you get clients and you get people that come to you in your practice, what's the one piece of advice that you give them? And I know it's custom, right? It's going to be by the person. What's the one piece of advice you give them to like not get overwhelmed by everything?
I teach them about the science of your body. And the reality is this: your body's designed to be healthy. It's not designed to be where most people are coming into me are. It's designed to be healthy. And if it's just nerdy science, right? So I was asked to be on this summit one time, and it was like biohacking the biome or something like that. And I had to go research how the microbiome and parasites interact. And after I went through that, I was like, holy crap, this is amazing. So the microbiome, there's more than 40,000 different bacteria in your digestive tract. And they all have a different little purpose. And I'm going to make up a name. Lactobacillus 57438. Like that's what they're named. They're a bunch of numbers and a word. Its job was to defend against protozoan parasites like Giardia. And another one was designed, and its job defend against Strongyloides parasite. And another one, and another one, and another one defend against X. Another one defend against Clostridium. Another one against all these bad things that we all are afraid of. And some of the other ones are designed to break down different, more organic toxins or remove different metals. And parasites, by the way, they will grab hold of a lot of toxins, and then your microbiome will kill them, and then they'll excrete them. So your body will actually use parasites and use bacteria synergistically to help you detox and help you stay healthy. The problem that we run into is when you don't know that you're being assaulted by all this crap, it accumulates on you. This is where the toxic bucket comes from. Your body's just overwhelmed and you have symptoms. Once you get past the overwhelm and you start tweaking and doing all these little things we're talking about, clean water and hygiene and so forth, it allows for all of the little workers in your body to start doing their job and being able to keep up. So when you get there, you're extremely resilient. I can go on vacation and I don't even care. Like, okay, I stayed in a moldy room. Like, yeah, I don't want to, and I'm trying to avoid it, but I'm not fearful of it. Or I'm drinking tap water. I don't love it, and I try to go get distilled water, but I'm also not going to dehydrate myself completely because I didn't have a moment to grab a glass of water. I don't feel bad about it. Again, I'm trying, and 99% of the time I'm doing a good job. But once you get to the point where you've taken those basic steps and you've optimized your body, so you worked with somebody, let's say like me, who went in and we go, okay, you have an overgrowth bacteria and you've got some mold fungus. We got to clean up your house. We got to get your hygiene products right. Once you've done that, maintaining it's not hard because your body is designed to thrive and it has so many little workers in it. We call it microbiome. That's not just bacteria, by the way. That's fungus and parasites and viruses that do jobs, that support you, that make you extremely strong when you are, which is why you don't get sick very often. And the same thing with me, like people are like, you don't feel well? once a year or whatever time I do. And it's like for 6 hours. And I'm like, yeah, my kid didn't sleep for 3 nights because he was sick and I was awake. So I didn't sleep. And then he was like doing what little bitty ones do. Like, he's like a year old. He's like licking my face, which is cute, but he had a thing and he gave me the thing after I didn't sleep. And I got sick for like 6 hours. And they're like, why are you so resilient? Because my little army's fighting for me and I'm doing all the things I need to do to stay there.
Right. And that's a good point. That kind of is, it's like exercising, right? Like once you actually start exercising, you feel better and you build the habit because you know that if you stop exercising, you feel like shit again. Same with drinking. You stop drinking, all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, I can sleep better. I'm feeling great in the mornings and all of this kind of stuff. But you got to kind of build the habit, right? And then you see the results and you don't want to go backwards. Or same with gluten. Like I won't touch gluten at all. Like I'd never cheat because I just feel so bad and nothing is worth it for those 48 hours that follow it. And it's just one of those things where you kind of build the habit, you see the results, and then you get a glimpse of what it would be like to go back and you don't want to do it.
Exactly. And the biggest thing that it feels like for me that people take from what I just kind of rattled off is stop being fearful. Start taking action. And that action will be just like you said, going to the gym. But the action is if your goal is health, just like if your goal was to lift 100 pounds, the only way you do that is to build. So build your body and remove the junk. Right. So that's what we're doing. And when people go, oh, there's a formula to this, it is possible. I can be better and I can actually stay better and still live and have fun. Not the same way that you were when you were in college and you were on benders, but in a reasonable format. It's freeing to them. I'm like, I don't want you to be on 40 supplements after this. I don't want you to have to do a sauna an hour every day after this. I don't need you to do coffee enemas every day the rest of your life after this. The goal is simply just to get to a reasonable threshold and do a few habits. Like I still take some electrolytes. I still take some things for my mitochondria. I do actually take creatine when I go to the gym, right? Some people ask me about that. Yeah. I've got all these supplements that get sent to my house and I'll randomly take some of those things. But the key for me is I want to live. I tell people all the time, like, I don't want you to focus so much on working with me that you're not living. We need to find a balance. And then when it's done, you do a few things so that you can live better. You don't do a ton of things so that you can live.
That makes sense. And then it's also, I think, they say too much of something is not good for you. I think that's kind of going too far. And I've been there where I'm like you saw me, I have a breakdown 10 minutes ago where I'm like, I can't eat anything. I can't put anything on my body. Like, I think you go fully extreme in that direction as well, then you're going to have a negative life. It's going to be a bad experience. You're not going to enjoy the Chiefs game and some hot chocolate or anything like that.
Yeah. Too many people that come to me are stuck in that panic state, and it's understandable. I get it. There's never a judgment there because you're like, I'll do anything to get better. But as soon as I shift their mindset from I have to be perfect to here's a process, a system that in the end, your input becomes the output that leads to success. Yeah. Like the stress starts coming off of them and they're like, okay, here we go.
Yeah. And you've mentioned this on another podcast. I listened to a couple over the last few weeks and I can't remember which one it was, but you sort of have this, like, I don't want, process might not be the right word, but this process of which you determine what's going on with someone. So it's like, okay, you have this symptom, let's peel that back and go under it and see what could be causing it. Like, what's your approach, I guess is what I'm getting at. What's your approach to a new client and what's your methodology behind finding the root cause of what's going on and causing all of their symptoms?
Yeah. So many people come in and of course their focus is, this is how I feel. Mm-hmm. How do you fix that? And they want, Lyme disease caused the fatigue and mold caused the brain fog and parasite caused the skin. And it's never, ever that simple. It's all of these things are weighing on you and we do have to find them. So through testing, through history, through experience, we put together what I call a roadmap. And that roadmap is all the stuff that we need to do to get to the finish line. And it's 3 phases. It's the starters, which is you're iron deficient. We need to get your iron up. You're B deficient. We got to get your B up. Your liver isn't operating well. We got to get some more support to that. So let's get some milk thistle, some NAC. So it's those kinds of things. And then it's the stressors. The stressors are the parasites, bacteria, mold, environmental toxins, metals, viruses, mycoplasma, stress.
This goes on and on.
It's those things. And then the effect of those problems and the starters, which are those deficiencies, is the symptoms. Now, there can be symptoms such as an ANA that's positive or an autoimmune condition marker such as thyroid peroxidase antibodies for Hashimoto's thyroid. It can be you just telling me that you have symptoms like anxiety, depression, and so forth. It can be an elevation of albumin, which is a protein that would be in your blood. And when it's too high, it means your body's stressed and dehydrated. It could be it could be so many things. Inflammation, C-reactive protein elevation, homocysteine, which is another inflammation elevation. So all of these things are the effects. And I categorize that for you so that you know that this is going on that we got to fix quickly. This is the causations, and these are the effects. And as we get rid of the stressors, the effects go away. So I create a understanding for someone. And then we go into our actual plan. And the plan is never, here's 12 months of stuff, go. See you later. Talk to you next year. It's 1, do we need more testing? 2, do you live in an environment that is safe, which is all the air, food, water, hygiene that I talked about earlier? 3, do you feel safe once you are in that safe environment? Because a lot of people still won't feel safe. So we got to do some work there. And then 4, it's, okay, let's systematically balance out your biome, which includes all those stressors, so that those things are no longer problematic. And I didn't say, well, let's eradicate bacteria. Let's eradicate parasites. I said, let's balance it.
Yeah.
And once we do that, the symptoms as a whole start to go down by 5 or 10%, which each protocol, which is 1 to 2 months long. So it's as a whole, your laundry list of what brought you in starts to cut down because overall the stress on your body starts to cut down. And it doesn't mean that, okay, we did parasites, this one symptom went away and everything else stayed the same. That's not how it works. And that's the process that we go through to help somebody. We meet with them every month and we make sure that we are interactive and that we communicate even in between those times so that we know how their body's responding. Because some people are really delicate and they're really responsive, and other people, yeah, they may not need us, but every, once a month, so that we can just tweak the plan and go to the next step.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the nice thing about it. And one of the critiques that I have and some of the other people I've had on my show have had of the medical field is that everything's very much like a one size fits all approach, where what you're doing is taking the individual and building a custom plan and roadmap for them, which I think gives people obviously a roadmap, but I also think it gives them a little bit of an ownership of it, as opposed to here's a script for, whatever prescription they're sending you on your way, or you need to exercise more. And there's no accountability on either side, really, with a typical medical professional. They kind of will tell you something, give you a prescription, and send you on your way.
Yeah. And even in the functional medicine realm, and this is something I've taught other providers, we have to be responsible for our own curiosity. So many providers are out there and they throw all this stuff at people: supplements, therapies, ideas, the latest, greatest, newest intervention. I mean, shoot, was it like, I've heard this past year a bunch of people go off on social media with urine therapy or nicotine or peptides, or, the list goes on. And you got people that are bandwagoners and they jump on it. And we have to be accountable as providers to checking ourselves and not getting on a bandwagon and figuring out a systematic process to help people improve. And yes, I don't want to be left behind and not use the new stuff, but I have to bring it in a way where it fits the person. It's not just the fad.
Right. Well, that's very well said. And one last thing I have to ask you about is I didn't want to bring this up, but I really, really, really can't handle another Chiefs Super Bowl. So what is your advice to someone like me who's about to flip their lid if they have to watch the Chiefs in another Super Bowl? I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. You sound. I was wondering if you were going to be a big fan. I kind of assumed, but how are you feeling about it?
Oh man, I have been through thick and thin. So for all those out here, I'm not a bandwagon. I grew up in Kansas City. I've spent 38 years here in Kansas City. I was at the Steve Bona, which nobody knows who that is, losses. The Lynn Elliott losses where they missed 3 field goals and lost by 1 point in the 90s with my dad freezing my toes off when I was a little kid. So I've been there. And, I love my team. And, man, they scare the crap out of me because they seem like they can't do anything right, yet they always win this year.
It's crazy.
And
it's like I don't know, like I couldn't even tell you, and I even play fantasy football. I'm like trying to think of who are their wide receivers. Like I know obviously Kelsey's the tight end, but like I couldn't even tell you since Tyreek Hill left.
Yeah, they haven't had anybody.
Hollywood Brown there? Is that?
Yeah, well, he is, but he broke his collarbone and he just came back like 2 games ago. So he wasn't there the whole year. We had Rashee Rice last year as a rookie who turned out okay and then tore his ACL this year. I mean, it's just like what they do is just so interesting. And honestly, we just at this point, like it's a joke. It is a joke because Mahomes has gotten to this point where he is a game manager and he manages the game, but you will watch like literally as a Kansas City fan who's watched like every playoff game. And I almost want to tie it back to functional medicine here.
Please do.
You watch him and all season he does what it takes. And that's it. Only what it takes. And then when you see him want to win, he plays differently. Like there was a game a couple weeks ago, I think it was with his ankle injured. It was against the Steelers. And the start of the game, I'm like, he wants this game. Like this is not, he's not playing around here. He just went for a 30-yard run on an ankle that's sprained. And you can just tell.
Oh yeah, because he was maybe not even going to play.
Yeah.
I remember that.
No, you know when he's trying and you see him switch from like regular season, he never runs. He never takes many hits. He doesn't throw crazy stuff. He doesn't throw the ball falling down or backhanded or whatever. You watch the playoffs, he's like a different individual. Like he's like, oh yeah, by the way, I've only been doing what it required me to do to get here. I'm actually going to try now.
Wow.
And just go back and watch a game from like the middle of the season and then watch a game in the playoffs. And you're like, oh, all right. Kelsey's the same way all season because he was on my fantasy team. Terrible.
Mine too. And he sucked for most of the season.
And then what did he just do? He had like 7 passes for 117 yards and a touchdown. Wouldn't you like to have that all season?
Yeah. It's like he decided to get in shape finally at the end of the season. When I was removed from the fantasy playoffs, I named my team the Swifties. We were all in. And I just can't even believe he didn't show up for most of the season.
But to tie it to functional medicine, right?
Yeah.
Tie it back to functional medicine. I ask the people I work with to think a little bit, and I'm going to like get hate for days for this, to think a little bit like Mahomes does on my analogy there, which is stop trying to do everything. Just do enough to get well. And here's why. Yeah. If you just do enough to get well, so you just use enough supplements, you just do enough therapies, what are you doing? You're allowing your body to use all that extra energy that you would have used to do more coffee enemas, more supplementation, more stressing on this perfect diet. You're using all of that energy to heal, to actually allow your cells to use its ATP to actually heal. So many people way overdo it, just like you would in a workout where you can't recover for weeks, you get rhabdomyolysis. That's what people are doing in their treatment protocols versus actually thinking about it like professional athletes and going, if I do this much, which causes a stress to my body that I recover and then I'm better for, they're overdoing it. So that's my tie back from my team. It's not perfect, but there you go.
We're podcasting. It's not supposed to be perfect. It's supposed to be, you work things out in real time. So no, I got it. I think it's a great tie back. before we wrap up here, and thank you again for your time, I'll give you a chance to ask me any question that you might be curious about.
Oh man. So as we went through this, you threw out there numerous times supplements. How many bottles of supplements are you taking on a given day?
I've lost count. I take
Is it more than 20?
20 bottles or 20 pills?
Bottles.
It's not more than 20 bottles. It's
Okay.
probably like 7 or 8 bottles.
Okay. That's not as bad as some.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then this is my next question.
It's been growing. That's the problem.
This is the next question. How many of them, if you stop now, will make any difference on your life because you know that it makes you better? Like, not that you think it does, not that you read a research article, but you actually will feel a difference.
Great question. So I take sea moss, which when I started taking sea moss a few years ago, that's when I stopped getting sick.
Okay.
So I do think that one contributes to that. I've noticed I've been taking vitamin D, but I take a dropper of vitamin D for several years now. And I've noticed a huge uptick in my mood, in my energy, that when I run out of it, it kind of seems to go a little bit down over a few days. Those I would say are like my non-negotiables. I've started, man, I'm like outing myself here for all of this bullshit I hear on the internet. But I've been taking beef organ supplement. I don't really know what it's doing. I've been doing it for probably like 5-6 months now. And then I've been taking collagen for like 10 years, and I worry that if I take that away, I would notice. But I don't know. That's what your point is taken. I don't really know.
So
and
fun
the other
experiment
ones
to
are
do.
probably throw away.
Great experiment to do is stop stuff one at a time and go, is there a difference? Now, here's the problem. Like, over time, could you like lower down and crash? Sure. So if you're working with a functional doc or if you can run your own labs, it's interesting to run your own labs and see why and what's happening. But I have so many people that are like 20, 30, 40 things. And I'm like,
Jesus,
let's just stop a lot of them. And if you feel different, we can bring it back. It's okay. It's just, what is it doing for you? And did it do something for you in the past? What was that thing? So that you can understand what your deficiency and problem was, so that now you can either solve the problem or then understand your body, right? So maybe you have a genetic SNP VDR that doesn't allow you to absorb vitamin D as well, or maybe you are deficient in vitamin D at the time that it made you feel better. And you said it actually happens if you run out now. So then my question is less like the problem then, but like, why are you not absorbing and maintaining a vitamin D level? Well, you're in Chicago, come off it in the summer when you're getting sun. If you're still having a problem, there's something that is a problem inside. Fix that. So you don't need the vitamin D. If it's, I came off it in the middle of the winter and I haven't seen the sun in 3 months. Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah. That's a good point. Maybe I'll get off of it over the summer, because I do try to spend as much time outside as I can, because, you know, similar to you, you get a couple good months and the rest is shit. So got to take advantage. Well, this was, I'm going to actually do the supplement test. I'm going to, when they run out, maybe one by one, see how I feel, because everyone, and I'm aware of this, but like everyone's slinging supplements and, you know, brand deals and all that stuff with it. Like it gets to be a lot, and you just want to not get sucked into all of it. So
I ask people,
go ahead.
What do you need for you? Something and everything out there. All the stuff that people are slinging work for someone really well, and they're ultra passionate about it. What do you need for you?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's what's important about working with a functional doctor who's interested in figuring out what you need and how you can get it.
There you go.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank you again for coming on here. This was really fun. I learned a lot. I'm feeling optimistic, not so much about my water filter, but otherwise, where can people find you or get in touch with you if they want to work with you or your team?
Yeah, just look me up, Dr. Jaban Moore. I'm on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, website, all the things. Just my name. And we're putting out content all the time. again, my goal is to educate, because when I had Lyme, that's the tieback right there, is I couldn't find answers. So I want answers, and all the stuff that I've researched and all of my knowledge to be out there for people to access and be able to use. So if you want to work with us, we have several providers and practitioners that we have in the clinic that can help support you. And we work with people all around the world to be able to give that information.
That's awesome. And all of those links are going to be in the show notes. So it's just a click away if you want to go check it out. So again, thanks so much. This was a lot of fun. I appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me on, man.
Thank you for joining us on this week's episode of Eyes Wide Open. If you enjoy the show, the best way to support us is by sharing or dropping a review. For more information and content, check out engagewithnick.com or find me on Instagram at nthompson513. Don't go through life blind. Do the work so you can show up in the world with your eyes wide open.